Okay, so we're back and at it again with another amazing review of some dental literature. This time we are looking at an article found in the Journal of Prosthodontics, volume 29, issue 3, March 2020. It was performed at Virginia Commonwealth University and Loma Linda. Looks like a joint collaborative study. Again, in grad pros programs, which probably has minimal bias. I don't think they received any funding from anybody. I didn't see that anywhere. I'll check the back real quick one more time. But I don't think they received funding.
No, and then they made a point of denying any conflicts of interest.
Which is great. So it looks like some grad pros residents were testing the influence of tooth preparation design and scan angulations on the accuracy of two intraoral digital scanners, an in vitro based study on three-dimensional comparisons. I'll tell you, it's a pretty cool study. If I was a grad pros resident, it's exactly probably what I would want to be doing.
Yeah.
Something like this.
A benchtop study.
Right, benchtop study. You get it all done, and it's great. So I'll try to do my best to go over this. There's a lot in here, and this is a lot of new information at the same time, comparing intraoral scanners, lab scanners, tooth design, adjacent teeth. They go over a lot of things in here, which if you have the time to go read it, I think they did a good job on it. Basically, they took the trios because it is powderless, and the true definition because it requires powder as their scanning options. They go into why they did that, but there's some support that says the powder is more accurate because X, Y, and Z. But Trios has consistently in the literature shown to be one of the most accurate intraoral scanners available. So their hypothesis was that there would be no significant differences in the accuracy between the two scanners and the partial and complete coverage restoration designs and the scan performance with adjacent teeth present and without. And just trying to help explain this, it took me a couple times to read through of what they did, but if you look at the diagram on the right side of the page here, it shows what they did. So they took this, type it out, and they tell you which kind it is. It's Columbia Dentiform. And they went ahead and prepped teeth, every other tooth, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so forth. The first teeth that are prepped are partial coverage. So 1, 3, I believe 6 and 7 were all partial covered restorations. So an onlay, two inlays, and a veneer basically as you wrap around the dental arch there. The rest are full coverage porcelain preparations for crowns. That will be the other teeth. So what they did then is they took what did they do? Let me tell you what they did again. So they used a 3-shape lab scanner, a D900L. Once everything was in, they went ahead and scanned, let's see, that picture doesn't say exactly what they did, I think. The first scan included the typodont with the prepared teeth only. Okay, so that would be the one on the right side there. So they put that into the lab scanner, scanned it in. Then they took the prep teeth off and added the adjacent teeth back on, and they did the second scan. So I guess that is accurate. Then what they did is they merged those two into, you see, STL model A. Does that make sense? And then they had an STL model B, so they just printed that just without the teeth, or the adjacent teeth. And then they did one more STL model C. And then they scanned the STL model C. Well, they printed it and then scanned it back in because that's going to be their model reference. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's their control.
Right. So then they went in, and with the Trios and the TrueDef, they scanned model A 10 times. Then they scanned model B 10 times with each. And then what they did is, you can see the patient's or the jaw's right side is the partial coverage preparation, and then the left side is the complete coverage restoration. And then you can see on the next image how that breaks down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just a lot going on, a lot of steps.
They explained in here the reason they did that, it would improve the accuracy and the comparable data that's there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you look at the data, group 1 again is partial coverage, group 2 is complete coverage, both next to adjacent teeth. Group 3 in their notes is a partial coverage, and then group 4 is complete coverage without adjacent teeth. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And you can see that.
Yep. Model A, adjacent teeth. Models B, no adjacent teeth.
And then what they did is they correlated those STL files and to see the accuracy. And so they recorded average absolute discrepancy, and then they did a maximum absolute discrepancy. Does that make sense? Go up to the view and go side by side. And page display, yeah. Perfect. There we go. All right. So we're going to jump in to, you got the tables, go to the table, right? Oh, one back, one, right there.
There we go.
So this is interesting. So that's what those groups are. Does that make sense now? So the table 2 is the average absolute discrepancy, and table 3 is the maximum absolute discrepancy. And you'll see this is a really interesting finding, which they talk about and point out. Group 1 again is partial coverage with adjacent teeth. Group 2 is partial coverage without adjacent teeth. And same thing on group 3, complete coverage with adjacent teeth. And group 4 is complete coverage without adjacent teeth. So 2 things you notice right away on there is groups with adjacent teeth have greater discrepancy than those without.
Yep.
And they talk about the angulation and the distortion in that a little bit in their discussion. And you also see partial coverage restorations have more discrepancy than full coverage, which they say is not what is in the literature. Like most people will say you need to do partial coverage because you're going to get a more accurate scan and a better fit. Very interesting, I thought. They also point out that
it's pretty much across the board too between the Trios and the TrueDef. They're both reporting similar results.
Right.
Regardless.
And so then they look at TrueDef versus Trios, and statistically, Trios performs better in almost all categories than the TrueDef. The one part they said that it doesn't really, if you go back one, is up in this full coverage section. They're very comparable. So they said there's no statistical difference between the full coverage and intraoral scanning with the TrueDef and the Trios. Very interesting. I just love articles like that because we have a Trios. We do quite a bit of scanning with it.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't jumped to doing all of our tooth preparations scanned still because we love PVS and can get such a great result with that. But it just shows some more information about the concept of scanning intraorally and that the tooth design or preparation does play a role in your accuracy, and adjacent teeth being present can affect your accuracy as well. They also point out that in other studies, they say the marginal or the accuracy discrepancy up to 75 to 150 microns is clinically acceptable or fine. They said the max discrepancy that they recorded was about 100 microns.
Yeah.
So everything within this is really fine still, and if we go by those standards, so both scanners are clinically acceptable. Very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate that the partial coverage restorations or partial coverage preps would show less accuracy than the full coverage.
Because you'd think it'd have more points of...
Right. But I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because you've got all these different angles that you have to work around.
And that's what they say, that the complex geometry together with the presence of adjacent teeth significantly reduce the accuracy, and they figure that those angles, the way the light bends, complicates it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So hopefully that was enjoyable for you guys. If whoever's watching, like I said, we think it's important because we have a Trio scanner. and we're always trying to understand it better. We enjoy it, and we're always finding ways to support why we do things the way we do. So good job, Loma Linda. And you end it.